they're kind of just going through the motions, and they could stumble across any one of these Catholic influencers' pages. How much of an impact can we have if we all unite together as influencers, put each other on, build each other up, promote each other, to affect those people who are kind of just going through the motions this whole time?
Welcome back to another episode of PPK. We are laughing because we get started, we get going, we get a little pause. Obviously, Miko's somewhere where we're not because it's about 66 degrees over here in Cali. It's about what over there?
About 6 degrees. It's like 20 degrees over here.
20 degrees.
Yeah, that's why I got the hood on. It's a little chilly out here.
It's even chilly in the library. That's how it is with Stoops.
It's tough out here.
So cool. It's good to be back. It's good to see. Just been getting in the swing of things, right, Meeks? I mean, it's been new semester.
Things are busy. Yeah. Entering into my last year. We graduated in December, so things are moving. Getting married in 3 months.
Yeah.
Put my big boy pants on.
That's tough.
And it's really tough.
Yeah, I mean. There's a lot of transition going on in the Sablans household, right? I mean, County got married, and Meeks is getting married, and all kinds of good stuff going on. So, continue to keep us in your prayers. So we're back at it. And for today's inspiration for this episode, kicking over to County.
Yeah, so we actually did a episode on Ray Grijalva's podcast called Joy of Faith. And this was back, first week of January. So stay tuned for that. That should be dropping soon, and check him out because he is a gift to our church, especially what he's doing, bringing our attention to the Eucharistic miracles and all that good stuff. But something, after having that episode with him and his willingness and almost like yearning to collaborate with other Catholic influencers, if you will, it just kind of opened up my eyes because, we like to connect with other people. And, when you work hard to try to build up a following and a platform, there's this natural tendency to guard it. And if you feel like there's, someone else is reaching out to you or you're reaching out to them, like there's like this competitive, my platform or my subscribers versus yours. And something that, just seeing Ray kind of break down that wall and say, no, we're much better together, and his just desire to build everyone up, that is trying to, go out into the world and bring others to truth. That just stood out to me. And so I reflecting on that, and you see just in the church, there is division, whether it be the traditionalists versus maybe the progressive versus those that are just kind of off into outer space, not really knowing what's going on. They just wake up, on Sundays and tune in virtually and, maybe have a cup of coffee, they're just vibing out. There's divisions right now within the church, but there's also divisions within the media influencers, within the Catholic sphere. And I think we can do a lot more work and have a much more positive impact on the lay people, Catholic or not Catholic, if we unite. And so just kind of shout out Ray for inspiring this episode. So
yeah, Ray, he's probably not watching this, but you're the GOAT if you are watching this. Ray, he really did, I think, open up all of our eyes, and he was gifted to be able to collaborate with Dr. Taylor Marshall on his channel and blew him up, I think, 60,000 subscribers in a year. Yeah. Just about. And I mean, and now, Ray's able to focus and do big things like, perhaps something really big coming on this year, and just things that he's able to do and use his gifts perhaps for a living now because of someone able to collaborate and also share something that I know I gained a lot from, which is Eucharistic miracles and stuff like that, something that Taylor's audience gained from. So everyone kind of won in that situation. And I think it helped us realize, like, wow, that, that's beautiful. I don't think you're always going to share every single idea and opinion with every other Catholic out there. But the fact that, people can come together and Ray was just so, like, he's the one that contacted us about collaborating. And we're like, You know, we have, I think 27 views is our highest. We just got that a couple weeks ago. And so, and just the fact that he wanted to come and talk to us it's amazing. Cause we always joke about our views and things like that. And it just felt so great to be like, well, at least Ray recognizes us, and Ray and Colin, at least those two guys, Garcia, all you guys that are coming, we know, you guys know who you are. And so, there's just like what Keone was saying, there's so much that we can do if we just all collaborate together. Imagine 3 brown guys and Matt Frad just, really giving a good one. We're all having pints with Aquinas. Don't worry. I'm 21. Don't you say? We could all have pints with Aquinas and have a good time. And, as we talked about it further, I think this is something that everyone could take. It's not just about influencers. But if people who have those gifts and people who want to be in film or they want to do anything, like use those gifts God gave you and like put the Catholic faith and the truth on a platform, because big tech and all these other things, they own everything. So really, I think this episode is going to be about how we can kind of break down those barriers and start our own little revolutionary war here against Satan and the evil things going on in this world.
Yeah, I think, one of the things that I learned early on just getting into the speaking realm is to the point that Keone made, where people tend to be guarded about their subscription, their subscribers, their followers. I don't want to recommend you because that may take away from, my ability to eat, right, and to hunt and to kill, that kind of thing. And it's crazy because when I think about it, I believe Jesus said the harvest is plenty and the laborers are few, right? So pray to the master for more laborers. And I think we often, not to say we can't be good businessmen or professionals when it comes to our craft, whether that be speaking or whatever, but, we can't, this is not about money. This is not about followers unless it's followers of Jesus Christ. And so I learned early on that there's a lot of cliques. Right. And we can be cliquish, right? We especially this last several years, specifically this last year that just passed, it's like there is huge line in the sand being drawn. We see that as a country. We see that as a world. We see that in the church. We see that even within factions within the church. And I think about like FSSP, I believe, broke away from SSPX, right? So it's like you even have factions within the factions of the factions, right? And here we are, where and we're I'm just as guilty, right? The minute you say you subscribe to so and so, then you're like, oh, you're that kind of Catholic, and it's humbling because people like Ray. And you guys know, Deacon Harold's one of those guys too, where he's a brother of mine. He's a spiritual mentor. He's somebody that does not need to bring any, up and coming person under his wing, but he does. He does it strictly out of charity and out of wanting to kind of spread the gospel and help people, bring it. If he sees talent, he wants to, or he sees somebody has gifts that they can offer to the church, which we all can and do. He doesn't let the labels or the categories stop from doing that. And then I think we've learned during this time to, love and respect people like that. Because quite honestly, we've had many dinner discussions or lunch discussions, whatever discussions at home, where we've kind of lost respect for a lot of people. And, during this time, because of the way they've responded and reacted, right? Created more division or, just forgot the whole mission, right? And if you look at like the last canon law, if you know canon law, which is kind of the law that governs the church, it's all for the salvation of souls. Right? What more? We're talking about, even in preparing for this, in Lumen Gentium, one of the dogmatic constitution on Light of the Nations for Vatican II Council, when it talks about the people of God in chapter 2, the council fathers say that it pleased God to create one people who acknowledge him in truth and serve him in holiness. And it's like, well, what are we doing to acknowledge the truth, right? The one universal church. And what are we doing to serve him in holiness? And the document goes on to say, when it talks about the laity, specifically that for each of us, we must assist each other to live holy lives in our daily occupations. Right. So we can't just say, well, that's up to Father so-and-so, Sister so-and-so, or Mika who goes to Franciscan, or, whatever. It's really up to each and every one of us as we live out our vocation, regardless of our state in life.
Yeah, just like I was talking to Meeks about this before, we were doing this episode, like going to Franciscan, was such a gift in that you go to a campus unified by the same faith, but each and every student had their own craft that they came and they wanted to obviously do it for the sake of Christ. There was the acting and theater, and they had, you had your Theocats, the classic Theocats out there, and you had, the athletes. And the thing that was different about that campus is that, when done right, they came to perfect that craft, not for themselves, but for God. And that was something that's super uplifting, because now it unifies everyone to a common goal. And I think that's why Franciscan is such a special place. And so you think about, even beyond the university system, just the universal church itself, and how many Catholics, we talked about this and why 70% of Catholics are wrong. How many Catholics are misinformed? How many Catholics are just doing what maybe their priest said, or what their parents formed them or didn't inform them on? And they're kind of just going through the motions, and they could stumble across any one of these Catholic influencers' pages. And how much of an impact can we have if we all unite together as influencers, put each other on, build each other up, promote each other, to affect those people who are kind of just going through the motions this whole time. And especially in a time where we're more isolated, our resources aren't as plentiful. There aren't massive conferences anymore. Mm-hmm. There aren't, you get to go to your church to have a talk. People aren't coming. It's all virtual. Mm-hmm. And I think we can do a lot more good to the world, especially in today's time, if we're uniting and building each other up. And so I think it's just a call out to everyone who's listening to perfect your craft, for God's sake. Because all of us, we all, like Miko and you and me, we all impact and are drawn to different people. Different people want to listen to us, and that might be different than some people who listen to Taylor or who listen to Matt Fradd or Father Mike Schmitz. But if we are all being together, that's how you start to spread the word into the globe. And mm-hmm. we're the universal church for a reason. Mm-hmm. So,
yeah, I think this is such an important topic, being under our main man, Mr. Biden, and this administration moving forward. It's just, our work is cut out for us. And I think the best way to move forward is to really gather an army, and to, we talked about dialogue, and kind of like there's dialogue for the sake of dialogue, and there's dialogue for the sake of truth. And I think we have to be able to approach people and bring them to truth. Those people who may not be very informed on this particular topic, that we feel we are more, and we can help them, point them towards truth. And kind of like, I was telling my dad earlier, I saw Matt Fradd on this Protestants channel, and he had been going to mass and kind of asking those questions about, kind of the real presence and some of these things that he maybe felt like, I don't really feel like I didn't have these questions answered before. And that's a perfect opportunity to evangelize the witness, because now you're coming to this maybe Protestant audience who's like, wow, he's starting to question things. That we had someone like Matt Fradd on, answer a lot of great questions, all that stuff. And like, that's the best thing to do, instead of kind of being a whole lone wolf and I'm gonna do this on my own and I have content the way I want to do it, or even everyday life, like who you associate with and kind of these things. We always, for some reason, want to like pander to the people that are basically lost and have no influence or care about our soul. But then when it comes to those people who maybe are like just a little bit different, or maybe like have one big viewpoint, then it's like we're kind of against them for some reason, right? And kind of have, like I think we saw that during a lot of this, when a lot of politics and stuff are going crazy, a lot of need for Catholic influencers. I feel like they need to pander towards this big audience, because that's what we're really going after, instead of going for those souls who are really hungry and things like that. Mm-hmm. I think to feed those souls is when we're kind of better together. And it's a universal call. Like, we continue to say, like, priest, prophet, king. I hope eventually to be that platform for a lot of people to use those sort of gifts. And some people like at Franciscan, but people everywhere. There's so many people who are gifted, and like, they don't see that example out there for them in order to be like, what, I can do what I love and be into my faith and make a living, because they just don't see that example out there. And that's something we're trying to do, is make those examples, although it'll probably be a while before we can make a living off any of this kind of stuff. But it starts with people like us, or people like the Matt Freds and Father Mikes, and all these people who have just shown like you can be in media and people will want to watch you. You know, like Fulton Sheen's the first one. He's the GOAT. He's the best one out of all of us. And you know, I was just watching a show, an old show, What's My Line, which is an old show. I try to guess whoever is the contestants on there. And when Fulton Sheen came out, you know, applauses, like one of the loudest applauses. Even when the judges said, you know, it's one of the larger applauses we've had in a while, so you must, you know who you are. They're all blindfolded and things like that. He wrote JMJ on the chalkboard before he came in, Jesus, Mary, and Joseph. And then one of the panelists kissed his ring. And it's like, I'm seeing this on ABC, ladies and gentlemen, back then. And so they're just amazing things we can do if we come together. We're not going to be able to get that on today's ABC, but that shouldn't be worrying us. That means that we should go out and try to create our own content. We should go out and create our own companies and do all these things that, like, who's stopping us? And I think the only way to fight all these things is to create our own and come together, and to really establish our own culture, you know, changing the culture from within, like using all these things that we have and these tools and our gifts to like start changing things instead of, you know, just sitting there and complaining about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think one of the things you brought up makes me talk about a lot of the, at least what we saw and experienced with a lot of Catholic influencers specifically, was this kind of pandering to the cultural wave, right, of certain ideologies, definitely some distorted truths out there. And I know that, I mean, we had a lot of dialogue even internally, and again, just a lot of introspection and reflection on, man, how would we get to this point, right, where we feel like we have to look like everybody else? And I think that's a part where how much scandal have we caused to other people outside of the church because of the divisions within the church. And it's interesting because, you know, people can argue tact, but they're probably more offended by the truth, right? So they'll say, well, you're speaking truth, but you're not doing it tactfully. You know, they're going to argue the method, but really they don't want to hear the message. And I think that's part of the issue in all of this is like, we try to, you know, I know Meeks, you were talking about when this whole concept came up of PPK and the idea of changing the culture from within is like looking internally to say, well, what am I really about? Like, what is my everyday life really about? You know, why do we fire at PPK? You know, and we have like for the 28.5 views, because it was like half a view, I think we added. Just kidding. You know what? The thing is, we got to stop focusing on the negative, right? The viewers that we do have are going to be like, dude, what's up? Am I chopped liver or what? It's like, no, we love you guys. No, for real. Just tell your friends and make them watch it. But you know what I mean? That's not why we're doing it, right? We've had numerous conversations because it can be super frustrating when everybody's guarded or everybody's being divided and everybody's like, well, I don't know you, or, you know, you didn't go to Franciscan, or you didn't go to whatever, you know, or you're not really that well known, or you're not an author yet, bro, so don't come at me yet, you know, and all these things. And it's just like, what are we doing, right? Are you just doing it for the followers? I mean, we do have to, on the other side, quite frankly, be guarded with regards to who we're connected to and who we're dialoguing with. But, you know, we're not endorsing, I mean, people are people. I've had people come out to some of our World Ablaze conferences, and so I'm like, whoa, you know, they went off the rails. And it's just like, you know, you can't control people's free will, and you do the best you can to vet it out. But in the end, we're all brothers and sisters in Christ. And true charity, as the great St. Thomas Aquinas would say, is to will the good of the other as other, and to love out of the love of benevolence, which is true friendship, and ultimately for God's sake and God's sake alone. And that's what we're trying to do, right? It's like, all right, let's cut down these barriers. You know, you're right, Meeks. We're not going to agree on every little bit, and we're not going to agree on the approach. We may be emphatically and passionately, you know, obstinate about certain things, especially when it comes to how we live out our Catholic faith. But in the end, we're one church. We're one body. What say you, County?
Just kind of thinking about when you were sharing about, you know, charity and benevolence. Father Ripperger we talked about it too, about being detached.
Yeah. And
I think it's super important for us in our own spiritual journeys, but also, you know, if we're trying to influence people and bring them truth through podcast or YouTube, whatever, to be detached from it in a way that is, you know, we're doing it for God's sake. So what he makes of it, you know, and I think that's important for all of us, because that's where that fear of like we're gonna lose our subscribers, or our subscribers are gonna magically just leave and just like now transform into Ray's subscribers list or Taylor's subscribers, and it's there's that fear because we have an attachment to it. And, that affects us in our daily lives all the time, I was just thinking as we were talking about this topic, like the litany of humility and like, just we want to be preferred over others all the time. Yeah. We want to be praised. We want to be honored. And it's just natural for us just as prideful human beings, in our fallen nature. I guess in a sense, it's not natural. It's our fallen state, but it's common for us as just fallen creatures to, we want the glory, we want the praise, we want to be preferred. And that litany of humility is literally, it's forming us to be detached from it. So that, not that we want to, poor me, because at the end of the day, God wants our ultimate good, but on his terms, at his time. And I think, just for all the listeners out there, you may not be your calling to be a YouTuber or to do that, but whatever your calling is, to be completely detached from it as far as the outcome, what God's going to do of it. And I think when we have that healthy detachment from it, God starts to use it more, because we're now allowing his will to work more than our own will. We're now more free. We can, even Archbishop Fulton Sheen says, when you're detached from your wife, and people are like, how can you be detached from your wife? But when you're actually detached from your wife in a way that you're only attached to God, you're actually more able and willing to love your spouse, because you're loving her for God's sake, which is alone. True charity, and I think if we can come together as YouTubers or, Catholic speakers or whatever, and to bring others to truth for God's sake. And if we lose subscribers or whatever, that's on God's, that's God's prerogative. But just to be completely detached from it. And, if Ray gets more glory because he's putting on this movie for the salvation of souls, we have to be okay with that, because at that moment that needed to happen for the sanctification of souls. And it's just all of us just to be detached. But at the same time, you're putting in your whole effort to make the most of your call. And it's a weird like paradox of in being detached, you actually do your job better, Yeah.
I was just kind of observing. I just think about like how petty some of the stuff is that we deal. I think like Bishop Barron blocked Taylor Marshall on Twitter, and just some of these things. It's like, like it might be a crazy idea, but what if we just had them like sit down and talk to each other? That might help people. Because you think about like people are coming to the church and curious, and they see things like that. It's like, how is that going to drive them closer to the true church? Yeah, it's really not. It's just going to see like, okay, well, which one is even right? How do I know? And like the unfortunate breakup of TNT of Tim Gore and Taylor Marshall. I'm not sure exactly what happened, but it's just a lot of unfortunate things. Yeah, that you like just want to see people come together and do those things, and it's like very much. I mean, I don't want to keep beat a dead horse, but it is just funny to kind of sit back and look at some of these observations, some of these little beefs that have been happening within the church. And so like, there's so many things going on with the church that we need to fight together. And sure, like regardless of who's right and who's wrong, still that's what like conversation and friendship is for, though. It's like that's why you have a channel, to be like, okay, let's come together, and for the sake of both of our viewers, let's point towards the truth, or things like that, like just the whole blocking or all that kind of stuff. It's just petty and gets kind of ridiculous. It's just, there's so much at stake right now. We need to be forming each other and upholding each other to say like, hey, let's look at, okay, regardless of what you think about Vatican II, let's remember what Our Lady of Fatima said. Let's remember what Our Lady of Good Success said here. Let's focus on some of these things that are like, we're getting warned, so let's figure out what the real issue is here and come together and kind of narrow it down and tackle it together. Because it's kind of crazy times. I think the more that every day goes by, and the more Mr. Biden puts another executive order, number 162 in 3 days, you start to see like things are getting kind of wild right now. And just like being at Franciscan and them even strongly encouraging us to receive in the hands, just some things like that. They're just like, man, where are we today? But don't you worry. I'm on my knees and receiving on my tongue over here. So you don't got to worry about that.
Man, you're making me kind of feel glad that we're on Exodus 90 over here, because we are just completely oblivious to outside of people just letting us know. And you should expect that. I think we did the one, God, not government. And I think we saw where we're headed, where now people are going to really see what it's like when you worship the government, or when you worship these little, worldly idols. And I think, going back to the whole division thing and the little petty rifts that we have between one another, which is unfortunate, and what does Jesus say? A house divided cannot stand, right? So it's like the devil is winning when it comes to that. And we're all guilty of it. Again, I'm just as guilty as the next guy. And so, I think the point of this episode in particular is to kind of address it, talk about the elephant in the room. We've all either been on one side of that coin or the other. Maybe we're the one that we're causing division, or maybe we're the one that we're divided against. So it's just like, in the end, what's the point? We can do more together, and just think about the souls at stake. Like, I start telling myself, whether it's with regards to Biden or whomever, or the bishops, or the guy next to me in the pew, whatever it is, I started saying, in the end, I don't have to answer for him, but I am going to have to answer for me and how I interacted with him. And I'm going to have to answer with all the things that I did in my heart. And so, I've been reflecting, especially on this week after spiritual direction, just humility. I know I can be a prideful person. In today's reading, we hear, the command to Adam and Eve in Genesis, right, about just don't eat of the tree, right, of knowledge. And what do? Right? We grasp at trying to be like God, even though we were made in his image and likeness to begin with. And it's just, you can see it. You can see chapter 3 of Genesis happening all over again, where the devil's just slithering in, turning things on its side, giving you half truths and convincing you not to trust God. And I think that's one of the key here, is like PPK is trying to help you change the culture from within. And so you want to change. I can't change what any of these influencers are doing, but we can change how we respond. We can change how we run this apostolate, and we can change how we interact with other people. And so a big shout out to anybody like Ray or anybody else who wants to collab. I know we're working on different discussions and potentially collaborations with other people, but big shout out to Ray again. Joy of Faith. If you're not subscribing to him yet, you should, for all the work that he's doing for trying to bring people together. And this is just a young dad who's loves God, loves the faith, and wants to break down barriers. So why can't we do the same?
I was just gonna say, kind of as a closing for the listeners to, whatever your call is, to, like you're saying with Lumen Gentium, to start to evangelize in some way. And if that is just to send them one of our videos or some other podcast that you really like, or to, share a book that really inspired you in your faith. But I think now more than ever, when the devil is trying to isolate us in so many different ways, take us away from the sacraments, depending on where you are listening to this and what your diocese is doing or whatever, how much more important we each have of a responsibility to, start to spread the truth, because they may not be getting it otherwise. And so, us as, influencers, we have an obligation to unite with each other, because we have a following, right? We're on a certain platform, and we have a responsibility to unite, to spread truth, and to actually, touch more souls as we can. But each of us individually, outside of the YouTube and the podcast or whatever, what are you doing with your friend groups? What are you doing with your family members? Are you addressing those hard discussions? Because at the end of the day, like you're saying, Pops, like we're seeing it right now before our eyes. And Meeks, what Mother Mary has warned us in so many different ways, like we are missing it. And if the government and if the state of the church is any clear indication that we are in the middle of something, and what better time, like Meeks was saying, to unite and to use our talents and our gifts for the glory of God, and to not hold it as a competition for someone else, just out of our pride. And so just, for all those listeners out there who may have a podcast or not, to, start to evangelize. Start to have those conversations with your coworkers. Start to have those conversations with your friend groups. Start to have, the Bible studies, or recommend a book. But I think it's a good reminder for us all as we, begin Lent. And go through this year to, start to make changes. Because if we're the universal church, we should start to have a universal impact.
Boom.
Yeah, my last little piece. is really going off of what my dad said and kind of having that humility, because, you know, although I get very irritated when priests step down from the ambo, or like, you know, there's a lot I can go on for a long time about what I get irritated about. But if that robs my peace during mass, then, like, you know, what am I really doing? Like, what's the point of me even being there? Like, there's a whole lot of things where I'm just starting to question. And, you know, we joke about, you know, views and stuff like that, but we really just care about being able to reach one person, or, like, you know, getting that text from my old friend from, you know, high school or middle school. Those are things that really matter. And so, yeah, I think that's a huge thing. I think for a lot of people who maybe have a newfound, you know, passion for tradition and upholding a lot of the beautiful things of the Mass and of the church, we can kind of get a little bit too, like, hold a lot of animosity towards other parts. And it's just never going to do us any good, as we've kind of realized and stuff like that. And, you know, just always having respect for others and understanding that there is, like, Jesus and beauty and a lot of things outside of you and the way you think. And that, yeah, you know, just me getting married and, you know, just stumbling upon some wisdom or something like that in these next couple months. But, yeah, I mean, that's really it.
Yeah, I think it's a good point, Meeks, because I think, you know, that was the, you know, we think about the devil's sin, right, was pride. You know, I will not serve, non servium. You think about the lack of trust in Adam and Eve, and really trying to grasp at what the perceived freedom that the devil was selling. And I just think we all need to, it's some time for reflection, right? It's time for reflection that, you know, have no fear out there. I think we are in some pretty crazy times, some dark times, but our saints have been dealing with this through all the course of history, we had pharaohs in the day, you know, we had emperors that were persecuting the church, literally throwing and feeding Christians to lions and burning them and crucifying them. So this isn't nothing new, and we're still standing. And I think that's a part, is like, we stood because we stood in Christ, and we stood because we locked arms as brothers and sisters in Christ. And that's what we got to do. So, you know, control what you can control. And I just think in the end, when we make our account before our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, there's one or two things. You're going to have a bunch of souls attached to you. That's not an option, but you're either going to take them to heaven or you're going to take them to hell. And that's on you. And so I think for us, if we just get together and really start to reflect on how we're embracing one another and how we're carrying out the call of discipleship, then, you know, we can start moving towards unification in the church. And then if we can unify within the church, imagine what we can do for those that are outside of the church, right? So, Meeks, anything else we need to remind our peeps out there for?
Yeah, I was just thinking, what if we universally like, commented, and subscribed, and universally shared this video? I mean, man, look at the things that we could do if we just universally did those things, man.
That's a good point.
That's a great point. Yeah, I think that's in Lumen Gentium. Well, one of the paragraphs in Lumen Gentium, Light of the Nations.
Yeah,
I forgot.
Leo the 13th or something like that.
Yeah, I think it was, actually there's several saints. I think you know, St. Thomas Aquinas. I think that's in one of the Summa questions.
Yeah, it was the last paper. He dropped it when he was about to publish it. He forgot it. And
he forgot.
It got lost in the publication.
It was actually the vision that he saw before he said, "I'm not even going to write the Summa anymore because PPK's got it covered." So if you could
I think on the tablets Joseph Smith found, he said to like, comment, and subscribe on Peace Father King. I don't know if I'd listen to him on that, but he can't be wrong about everything. You know, even a broken clock's right twice a day, whatever they say.
That's right. Well, hey, we appreciate getting together again. We miss Meeks. He's all the way in Stubes. So shout out to Meeks and Ella out there in Steubenville doing their thing. Thank you again for joining us and being patient with us as we just try to, you know, deal with life. So let us know what you want to hear. Share, like, comment, subscribe. Get holy or die trying. Peace.